Welcome back to the Legacy Shift podcast. If you've ever sat in the quiet after reacting, after your voice got sharper than you maybe meant it to be, after your tone changed, after you saw your child's face shift, and the first thought that came to you was, why did I react like that? I know better. I've done the work. Why is this still happening? I want to meet you right there. Not in the fixing, not in the analyzing, not in the spiraling. Just right there in that tender moment right after. Because that question, why did I react, sounds reflective, it sounds self-aware, and it sounds like growth. But for so many conscious mothers, it doesn't land as curiosity. It lands as quiet blame. And if that's been your experience, you're not alone. Today, we're not going to dissect your childhood. We're not going to label your triggers. We're not going to fix your reactions. We're going to understand something much simpler and much more relieving. Your nervous system doesn't explain, it signals. And your body answered long before your mind had a chance to make sense of it. This episode is an invitation to soften that question and maybe replace it with something that feels steadier. Let's dive into today's episode. I'd first like to normalize that these reactions are so common in conscious parenting. And I can relate to each and every relatable moment that maybe you have thought. If you've thought, I reacted faster than I wanted to, or my voice got louder, my tone sharpened, or my child's face just got really scared and I felt so guilty of that. I can relate to that on such an intrinsic level. And I want to normalize that these experiences are very common in conscious parenting. The spiral that comes right after those thoughts of, why did I do that? I know better. I've done the work. Why am I still here doing that? I just want to take the time to interrupt that shame that may be running through your mind. And this episode is going to dive into a softer approach and how we show up in those moments, but how we also feel after them and in those spiraling thoughts. Often when we start a question that's self-reflective with why, it's actually coming across as self-blame without us as mothers being aware of it. It may feel curious, but it does land as judgment. Judgment for ourselves, judgment for our actions, judgment for our thoughts. So if you ask the question to yourself, why did I react? I know for me, is what's wrong with me? Why am I not further along? Why can't I control myself? And that comes across as self-blame. It's intrinsic in us. It's something that is constantly healing and constantly growing and developing to move past that blame and come from a true place of curiosity. If we're in a regulated state, why can come across as reflective. It can be reflective, but in that dysregulation state, why becomes interrogation of ourselves. And that's the sweet spot difference between being in regulated and dysregulated why state. Interrogation increases the threat, which shuts down our nervous system, which we've spoken about in previous episodes. So when we have a shut down nervous system, our capacity decreases and our reaction time increases. If we're going to reframe this from a nervous system perspective, when you asked why from a stressed body, or if your chest is feeling tight, or if you're feeling, I feel it in my throat and in my chest when I feel such self-blame. When we're asking why in that, the body hears, you failed again, you're not being safe, you are unsafe, you're not enough as a mother, you need to do better, you need to be better. That increases our stress in our stress body, but our stress body is telling us that in those feelings, in those intrinsic feelings. It turns more into a micro interrogation of ourselves. And We can stop that by doing a little bit of an integration. After reacting, we can try to replace why did I do that with my system was overloaded. Now, it's not releasing all responsibility from that situation, but what it is doing is allowing you to be in a regulated state before you start understanding and questioning what happened in that situation. It's not fixing it, it's naming it. I recently just touched on how the nervous system sends us signals when it is overloaded or overstimulated or being in a really dysregulated state. This is where you can really hone in on those feelings and really try to understand what's going on. Your nervous system, again, like I said previously, is not going to narrate for you. It's not going to say this is good, this is bad. It's not going to say you're worthy, you're not worthy. It's protective. It's protective of you as a mom. It's protective of you, of your feelings. It's fast to react, so it's often unconscious, and it responds before we even have a thought. And this is where we can see something happened and say someone's throwing something at you and you flinch, right? That's a nervous system response. But if you don't flinch, that's also a nervous system response. So it just depends on what kind of pathways your nervous system has developed previously before this response happens. A lot of times signals can look like, for me, like I said, I get a tight chest or a tight throat. I often feel it here in my throat, or maybe you start feeling like clenched shoulders, or like you're just like clenching your traps and things like that. Maybe your jaw is getting tight. Maybe you're having tunnel vision and that's all you can focus on. Or maybe there's a sense of urgency that wasn't there previously to this. Those are signals that your nervous system will send to you to tell you that, hey, you're now getting into a dysregulated state. So when we can tune into what our body is feeling and tune into what our body is trying to signal to us, we can often tap into that mind a little bit faster. Our body will always respond before our mind, and that's just the way the nervous system pathways work. What we're looking for is to really regulate that safety in our nervous system. This is not regression, it's actually sequence of how our bodies respond. And having that education around how that nervous system reacts to different situations is very, very knowledgeable and very great to have as a conscious mother, because then you can pick it up faster. Be like, oh, I understand that I was in a dysregulated state. I understand that I am in a dysregulated state. And I know that I need to do X, Y, Z before I respond to this situation. Or you're able to pick that up a little bit faster with having a little bit more education of how your nervous system responds to situations. So the order of the nervous system response is, first there's a threat detected. So that can look like I just used the analogy of someone throwing something at you. So like yesterday, I had asked my son several times to stop using an outdoor ball inside. It was like one of those plastic balls. And he had thought he was going to play volleyball and be silly, and he hit me in the face with it. Instantly, that detected threat, right? I got hit in the face with the volleyball. Unexpected. Then I got my chest clenched together and I got angry. I said, hey, stop it right now. I told you not to do that. And then later, the meaning making begins. Most mothers start at step 3. So we're not conscious enough to detect the threat and mobilize. We are, okay, now, oh, he just did that. That's like a consequential action, right? But if I were to be regulated in that situation and I had the neural pathway to be able to be regulated in that situation, I could have probably responded differently and said, hey, bud, we don't do that. We don't throw balls or whatever. We're not playing volleyball, or, oh, I see you did that, and just come from a lighter place. Instead, my body reacted to the threat of getting hit with the ball first, and therefore my meaning making began at that step 3 level. So in those types of situations, we can often go into that self-blame of, why did I react this way? What's happening? In those moments of threat and those responses, we can often ask, why did I react? Instead of asking, why did I react? We can replace it with, what's happening in my body? So instead, you are moving past judgment of yourself and judgment of your character, and you're moving to sensory awareness. So, oh, my chest feels tight. Oh, my face got all red. Or my thoughts really sped up in this situation. Or everything feels very urgent right now. These are your sensory awareness And this is where you're tracking. It's not analysis, but you're tracking. Hey, this is what's going on in my body. And this is important because it prevents the story from activating shame in your body. So the sensation restores awareness, and then the awareness actually increases your capacity. Now, this is how we can reverse that nervous system response. We're naming the awareness in our body, we're becoming aware of it. The shame is now not there. We increase our awareness, and then our capacities increased. And that's such a beautiful place to be because, again, like I said, our mind is always going to follow the physical reaction. Why this matters is because this is a catalyst for changing those neural pathways in your nervous system. I want to do a little bit of a micro practice with you so we can practice what this looks like, okay? So after a reaction, so say yesterday, after I reacted toward my son for throwing that ball at my face, I can put a hand on my body, so on my chest or wherever you feel comfortable. I can say in that moment, my system was activated. And then I can notice one sensation. So maybe it was my chest clenched up. Oh, my chest is so clenched up right now. My system was activated. And then that's enough. Because now you increased your awareness, which is increasing your capacity. There's no processing. There's no journaling. You don't have to sit there and journal for hours. You don't have to sit there and try to fix it. You don't have to really sit there and figure out what's going on and find blame and all those things. You're noticing the awareness and you're increasing your capacity. So simple as a 30-second moment after a reaction. And I really want to note here that this really proves and shows your nervous system what safety can feel like. And that is just so beautiful to see and be as a place for a conscious mother. Many mothers may believe that curiosity must lead to correction, but truly embodied curiosity doesn't demand change right away. It sounds like that was a lot for my body. Okay, or that felt really overwhelming, or my system went into protection there. Again, awareness. It does not sound like things like I need to work on myself, or I should be past this, or I need better tools. That's not curiosity. That's not true curiosity. That's actually coming from a place of not being safe and trying to fix. So calm is trained, and that's where the awareness comes from. Calm is trained into our nervous systems. It creates those new neural pathways to create that calm nervous system response in situations that may arise. Consistency is the nervous system outcome. So being consistent in those calm responses is going to help with the nervous system in the long run. And safety precedes that change. So trying to feel safe in those moments before that change. When your body feels safe after a rupture, it can feel like, oh, I'm so calm in this moment. It's all good. It's not a big deal. I'm not getting clenched chest or jaw, or not getting short. It's my body feels really safe in this moment, and I'm just gonna look at the situation and deal with it in a calm manner. When your body feels safe after a rupture, the repair becomes easier, and reflection becomes easier as well. It becomes a lot clearer about what needs to change or what kind of integration needs to happen. Integration then becomes possible for you as a conscious parent. But this cannot happen inside interrogation of self or inside self-blame. I do want to be really clear that there is still responsibility. It's just not self-punishment. So understanding your nervous system does not excuse the behavior that happened. Repair still matters here. Repair is always possible, and repair is still the forefront of a situation. This is just coming from a place of a nervous system response and how you can take accountability for how you're showing up in that moment and understand it from a body perspective and a nervous system perspective, but it does not replace the responsibility for what happened. Shame does not improve the regulation of the nervous system response, and that's why the repair is still important. The sequence of events really matters here. First, our option is to regulate. We like to regulate our nervous system. Next, we want to repair any damage that may have happened, or if you responded very quickly or whatever that was, you want to repair that relationship. And then you want to go into reflection. Okay? So regulate, repair, reflect. That's the 3 R's for the sequence that matters in how to show up in a moment after a outbreak or whatever would have happened. You don't want to analyze first, shame yourself, and then spiral. That does not work, okay? And if you feel like you're going into these moments of spiral or analyzing or any of that, or if you just need extra support at any given time when you're working through situations, I've made an amazing support, and it's located in the show notes. I would love for you to check it out. It's called the Regulated Mirror, and you can type in your situation and get immediate support for how to deal with that situation from a regulated response perspective. When you try to ask why before regulation, you're going to get that self-blame. You're trying to cognitively override physiology, but physiology always wins. That's the body response. Physiology will always win. So to really recap this entire episode, if you've been asking yourself, why did I react? Try instead, my nervous system signaled, or I was overloaded, or my body answered first. And then follow it up with maybe, I can regulate and repair. And you're showing yourself so much love and so much safety in those moments. The nervous system doesn't explain, it will always signal. So you'll find that in continuing to try these different responses and reactions, that eventually your nervous system will signal to you that it's safe and calm in these moments. I really want to make it clear, you're not behind as a mother, you're not broken. What you are doing is building capacity. Capacity will always grow through safety, not interrogation of self. Before we close, I want to leave you with this. The next time you hear yourself ask, why did I react like that? Pause. And instead of turning toward interrogation, turn toward steadiness. Your nervous system signaled, it didn't explain. It protected in that moment. And protection isn't a character flaw, it's physiology. It's part of who you are. If you find yourself in that after moment, after that raised voice or that sharp tone or that heaviness in the chest sits in, you don't have to sit there alone with your thoughts. I've created, like I said earlier in this episode, the Regulated Mirror for exactly that purpose. It's not advice, it's not a lesson, it's not a checklist, but what it is a support for you to go when you feel like you've gone offline. So you can open it in the exact moment when you feel that shame starting to creep in, or you can type out exactly what happened in that moment, messy, unfiltered, whatever. You don't have any performance here, and it will respond to you the way many of us wish someone would support us and respond to us after those moments. There's clarity without the blame. Not to fix you, but to really provide you with enough nervous system support to settle and feel safe. You can find it in the show notes below. Use it as often as you need. There's nothing to prove, nothing to earn, just support in the after. And with that, I will see you next week on next week's episode of the Legacy Shift podcast.